Everyone expected the bright summer auction to be ordinary. Just another sunlit day in San Diego, where unwanted animals were quietly sold and forgotten. But instead, it turned into a scene no one in that sparkling modern hall would ever forget. Murmurs died when the massive retired police German Shepherd suddenly rose inside his glass enclosure, slamming his body against the barrier the moment a little girl in a pastel-pink summer jacket stepped into the aisle. At first, people thought the dog was panicking, lashing out, proving why he'd been labeled too dangerous. But then he did something far stranger. He pressed his head hard against the glass, whining, trembling, refusing to look away from the girl holding a single crumpled dollar. Gasps swept across the bright room. "Why is he acting like this?" someone whispered. "And why is he crying toward her?" No one understood it. Not the handlers, not the officers, not even the child's own mother. But the dog knew something no one else under those bright summer lights could sense. He wasn't warning them. He was calling to her. And when the little girl whispered, "I want to buy him," the police dog began scratching, barking, tearing at the door of his enclosure as if desperate to reach the only person who hadn't given up on him. Gasps erupted. Phones came up. The auctioneer froze. "Why won't he look at anyone else?" someone whispered. "What is he sensing in her?" And then the chilling realization struck the room. Why is a dangerous police dog acting like she's the only one who can save him? What happened next shocked everyone. Before we begin, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Our stories travel farther than we ever imagined. Summer in San Diego did not believe in being subtle. The heat came down in wide white sheets of light, turning glass towers into mirrors and baking the asphalt until it shimmered. Outside, palm trees stood like sentries along bright streets, their fronds barely stirring in the lazy coastal breeze. Inside one sleek gray building near the edge of downtown, the world felt almost too clean to be real. The San Diego Companion Center, a modern animal auction hall built more like a tech showroom than a shelter, glowed under rows of cold LED panels. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Glass enclosures lined the walls, each one lit from above, each with a screen mounted beside it, scrolling details: age, breed, temperament, starting bid. People moved through the hall in soft summer clothes and polished shoes, their reflections multiplying in the glass. Laughter drifted between the rows, light and careless, as families pointed at fluffy puppies and tiny yapping lapdogs. In the back corner, where the lights were just a little harsher and the hum of the air conditioning seemed louder, sat a dog that didn't belong in a place like this. Rex was a large male German Shepherd, around 8 years old, with a powerful frame that had thinned just enough to show the hard lines of ribs and muscle beneath his coat. Once his fur had no doubt been a proud mix of rich black saddle and warm tan, the classic colors of a police K9. Now it was dulled by time and neglect, streaked with rough patches where old scars pulled the hair in different directions. One ear stood tall and rigid. The other had a jagged tear near the tip, like someone had taken a bite out of his past. His eyes, amber and sharp once, had settled into a muted, tired gold, the kind of eyes that had seen more than people would ever want to remember. A faint white grizzle dusted the fur around his muzzle, not enough to make him look old, but enough to say he had earned every year. On the screen above his enclosure, blue letters glowed on a white background. Rex, male German Shepherd, K9 retired, behavior, aggressive, starting bid, $1. A small icon of a warning triangle blinked beside the word aggressive. People saw the triangle, not the dog. Most didn't even slow down. A boy with a baseball cap pointed quickly, then dragged his mother toward a fluffy golden puppy. A middle-aged man in a crisp polo shirt, tanned and confident, glanced at Rex, decided he looked too much work, and pivoted toward a tiny designer dog with a bow in its fur. The chatter rose and fell. The distant echo of the auctioneer's voice floated through the hall, but in the corner, the air felt still around Rex. He lay with his paws stretched forward, chest pressed to the clean white floor, head low but not quite surrendered. His gaze tracked the movement of shoes and legs, sandals, sneakers, heels, without much interest. Somewhere deep inside, old instincts were still alive. Observe, assess, protect. But those instincts were caged now, same as his body. A thin metal collar sat around his neck, not the sturdy leather one that had once carried badges and commendations. This one just held a number and a barcode. To the system, Rex was now just an item in inventory. Near the center of the hall, the auctioneer stood on a raised platform. His name was Tom Bradley, a man in his late 40s with thinning, sandy hair slicked back as if he were always trying to look more polished than he felt. A bit of a belly pressed against his too tight light blue shirt, and his tie was already loosened despite the air conditioning. His face was square, with a chin beginning to blur into his neck, and a 5 o'clock shadow that hinted he either didn't sleep enough or didn't care enough to shave properly. Tom's voice, however, was the kind of voice that could cut through any room. Loud, rehearsed, and a little too cheerful, with an edge of someone who had been doing this job long enough to stop believing the stories on the screens. He joked with the crowd, nudged them into bidding, his eyes constantly scanning for raised hands and raised wallets. To him, today was just another summer Saturday. Move animals, clear space, hit numbers. No more, no less. The glass doors at the front of the hall slid open with a soft hiss, letting in a slice of bright sun that spilled across the shiny floor like melted gold. A small girl stepped through first, her shoes making light tapping sounds that barely rose above the hum of conversation. Lily Carter was 6 years old, with a slight, wiry frame that made her seem both fragile and stubborn at the same time. Freckles sprinkled across her small nose and cheeks like someone had flicked a paintbrush at her face. Her hair, a soft honey blonde, fell in loose waves to her shoulders, escaping the simple ponytail her mother had tried to tame it into that morning. Lily wore a pastel pink summer jacket, thin and light, with the sleeves rolled just a bit above her wrists. Underneath was a plain white t-shirt, already showing a faint shadow of what might have been a juice stain from earlier. Her blue jeans were slightly scuffed at the knees, and her brown ankle boots, practical, a little too big, but clearly beloved, thudded lightly as she walked. In her right hand, hidden in the soft fold of her jacket pocket, her small fingers were wrapped tightly around a crumpled $1 bill. She hadn't told her mother she'd brought it. Holding her left hand was Officer Emily Carter, Lily's mother. Emily was in her mid-30s, around 5'7", with a lean, athletic build that came from long hours on patrol rather than a gym membership. Her dark brown hair was pulled back into a low, no-nonsense bun at the nape of her neck, with a few rebellious strands curling near her temples. Her skin held the warm, sun-kissed tone of someone who spent more time outside than inside, and faint lines at the corners of her gray eyes hinted at nights spent worrying more about others than herself. She wore her navy blue police uniform with quiet pride, pressed, straight, not a wrinkle out of place. The silver badge on her chest caught the overhead light, and the radio at her shoulder muttered occasional static like a restless spirit. Emily had the calm, steady expression of someone who had seen too much trouble to be easily impressed, but not enough to lose compassion. She tightened her grip around Lily's small hand as they stepped fully inside. "Stay close to me, okay, Bug?" she murmured, her voice low and gentle. "I am staying close," Lily replied, chin lifting just a little. That streak of quiet stubbornness flashed in her eyes, a trait she'd inherited directly from the woman beside her. Emily scanned the room automatically, the way all officers did, seeing exits, potential hazards, security staff. She noticed the families smiling at puppies, the volunteers in matching green vests moving between enclosures, the sleek tablet stands where people could sign digital forms in seconds. Off to the side, a young woman in a green vest with a messy ponytail and round glasses, her name tag read Mia, volunteer, gave them a quick friendly nod. Mia looked to be in her early 20s, with a soft, bookish face and the kind of warm brown eyes that made animals trust her on sight. She clutched a clipboard to her chest, like a shield, and hurried past, clearly more comfortable with dogs than with small talk. "We'll find something small," Emily said, mostly to herself. "Something calm. Good with kids. Nothing with a warning sign." She guided Lily toward the front rows of enclosures where wagging tails and eager eyes greeted them. A fluffy white puppy bounced against the glass, paws smearing the surface with enthusiasm. "Look at this one," Emily said, pointing lightly. "He seems sweet, doesn't he?" Lily glanced at the puppy, smiled politely, but her eyes didn't linger. Something tugged at her attention, a pull just at the edge of her awareness. She turned her head, the pastel pink of her jacket catching the cool white light, and looked down the long aisle toward the back of the hall. For a moment, everything else seemed to blur. The cheerful chatter faded to a distant hum. Her gaze narrowed, drawn as if by an invisible thread. Rex had been staring at the polished floor, watching blue and white reflections glide past, when he felt it, a change in the pattern, a shift in the air. One paw twitched. He lifted his head, slowly, as if it weighed more than it should. The overhead light picked up the gold in his eyes as he turned them toward the aisle. And there she was, a child in a pastel pink jacket, standing very still among the moving crowd, her white t-shirt bright against the colored glass, her jeans slightly wrinkled at the knees, her brown boots planted firmly on the floor. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't pointing. She wasn't turning away. She was just looking at him, as if he were the only living thing in the entire hall. Their eyes met. For one long heartbeat, Rex forgot the warning triangle on the screen, the barcode on his collar, the word aggressive blinking like an accusation above his head. Somewhere deep inside his chest, beneath scar tissue and months of disappointment, something moved, a memory of standing tall in a different uniform, of hearing his name spoken with warmth instead of caution. Lily, hands now loose at her sides, felt a strange ache in her chest. He looked so big, so battered, but his eyes didn't feel scary. They felt tired, hurt, alone. She stepped closer to the glass, her reflection merging with his silhouette. "Mom," she said softly, not taking her eyes off Rex. "Look." Emily followed her daughter's gaze and stiffened. Even from several steps away, she could see the size of him, the scars, the way one ear was torn. Her eyes flicked immediately to the glowing screen. K9 retired. Aggressive. $1. Her jaw tightened. Sweetheart, she began carefully, that one's not for us. He's a working dog who's not working anymore. That can be complicated. Lily didn't answer. She was too busy staring at the lines of Rex's face, the strong muzzle, the weary eyes, the way his chest rose and fell in slow, deliberate breaths. She lifted one small hand and pressed it gently to the glass. On the other side, Rex's ears shifted forward. His nose moved, just slightly, as if trying to catch a scent that the barrier wouldn't let through. A dull thud echoed softly as his paw slid forward, claws clicking once against the floor. For the first time that day, his body leaned toward something instead of away. "We'll keep looking," Emily said, though her voice had lost some of its certainty. She reached down, fingers closing around Lily's shoulder with the gentle firmness of a mother who had spent years balancing love and caution. "Come on, Bug. Let's see the others." Reluctantly, Lily let her hand slip from the glass. She turned when her mother guided her, but as they walked away, she kept glancing back over her shoulder. Rex watched her go, the corner of his mouth tightening in what could almost have been confusion. The girl in pink moved farther down the aisle, swallowed by bright lights and moving bodies, but he kept his gaze fixed on the last spot where he had seen her. Near the center platform, Tom Bradley's voice boomed over the sound system, cheerful and tired at once. "All right, folks. Next up, lot number 23, a playful little terrier mix, great with kids. Let's start the bid at $50. Applause and laughter rippled through the hall. Hands went up. Numbers flashed on screens. Business as usual. Emily paused near another row of enclosures, forcing a smile she didn't quite feel. "What about this one?" she asked, pointing to a sleepy golden retriever pup curled in a corner, but when she looked down, her hand tightened instinctively. Lily was no longer beside her. For a split second, Emily's heart lurched into her throat. Her eyes darted left, right, scanning the bright room. Then she saw a small flash of pastel pink near the center aisle, moving with single-minded determination. Lily walked quickly, but not quite running, her brown boots thudding a little louder now on the smooth floor. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes shining with a mixture of fear and courage, the kind of wild bravery only a 6-year-old can have. Inside her jacket pocket, the crumpled $1 bill burned like a secret promise. She slipped between two adults arguing over a husky, ducked around a volunteer pushing a cart of food bowls, and headed straight toward the raised auction platform where Tom Bradley stood, adjusting his microphone. The lights overhead seemed even brighter at the center of the room, reflecting off the glass, the screens, the polished metal railings. Tom had just finished with the terrier and was scrolling through his tablet for the next listing when a small shadow fell across his podium. He looked up, eyebrows arching. Standing directly in front of him, shoulders squared despite her tiny size, was Lily Carter in her pastel pink summer jacket, white t-shirt, jeans, and brown boots, one hand balled into a fist at her side, the other clutching a wrinkled green note. A few people nearby began to notice, conversations faltering. Phones dipped, heads turned. It was hard to ignore a child standing in the middle of a high-gloss auction floor, lit like a spotlight by the carefully designed ceiling lamps. Tom cleared his throat. Can I help you, kiddo?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. His eyes flicked automatically toward the security guard on the right. Jake, a broad-shouldered man in his 30s with a shaved head and a beard trimmed to a neat line along his jaw. Jake's dark eyes narrowed slightly, not unkind but wary. His job was to make sure scenes didn't happen here. Lily swallowed. Her free hand slipped into her pocket and pulled out the crumpled bill. She smoothed it once against the front of her pink jacket, the paper trembling between her fingers. Then she lifted it up, high enough for the microphone to catch the soft rustle, high enough for curious eyes to see it was just one single dollar. Her voice, when it came, was small but clear, carrying farther than it had any right to in the bright, humming hall. She began, then took a breath, feeling dozens of eyes on her back. I want to buy the police dog in the corner. The sound system seemed to swallow her words and then throw them back out over the crowd. Conversations died mid-sentence. A laughter line cut off abruptly. Even the terrier in the last cage stopped barking. Heads turned as if pulled by a string, eyes darting from the tiny figure on the platform to the glowing screen in the back. K9 retired. Aggressive. $1. For the first time all day, the bright modern auction hall fell perfectly, utterly silent. The overhead lights gleamed off the polished marble floor as if the entire room had been dipped in summer sunlight. Even in the air-conditioned coolness of the San Diego Companion Center, there was a warmth in the air, part curiosity, part disbelief, as the crowd stared at the little girl holding up a single crumpled dollar. The auctioneer, Tom Bradley, blinked twice, his sandy eyebrows climbing toward his thinning hairline as he leaned forward, trying to understand what he was seeing. Before him stood a child no taller than his podium, dressed in her pastel pink summer jacket, white t-shirt, blue jeans, and brown ankle boots, clutching the wrinkled bill like a declaration of war. Tom had seen plenty of strange bids in his 20 years. Rich folks buying teacup dogs like luxury handbags, lonely men bidding too much for half-feral cats, but never a 6-year-old buying a retired police dog for $1. A few people snickered from the back. One woman in large cat-eye sunglasses, Janet Moore, a wealthy divorcee in her mid-50s, tall and slim, with an over-tanned complexion and perfectly ironed blonde bob, let out a small laugh, shaking her head with the dismissive amusement of someone who loved gossip more than kindness. She whispered to the man beside her, "She must think this is a toy store." The man, Eli Turner, mid-60s, gray beard, sun-weathered skin from decades of construction work, glanced at the girl with tired sympathy. He wasn't one to mock children. Life had chipped away at his softness, but not erased it. He muttered, "Or maybe she sees something we don't," before crossing his muscular arms and falling silent. Emily Carter pushed through the forming circle of spectators, her navy blue police uniform making people instinctively step aside. Her gray eyes flashed with equal parts panic and exhaustion as she grabbed Lily's shoulder. Emily was no stranger to chaotic scenes. As an officer who'd once worked night patrol in rougher neighborhoods, she'd broken up bar fights, talked people out of bad decisions, and once had to coax a drunk tourist down from a fountain lion statue at 2 a.m. But somehow, nothing felt quite as nerve-wracking as seeing her 6-year-old daughter stand at the center of a bright auction hall holding up a dollar bill. "Lily," Emily whispered urgently, leaning close. "Sweetheart, that dog is a retired police K9. He could be dangerous. This isn't safe." Lily didn't take her eyes off the back of the hall, where Rex, massive, scarred, silent, stood behind the glass enclosure like a fallen soldier awaiting judgment. Her voice was soft but unshaken. "He's not dangerous, Mommy. He's sad." A few phones rose above the crowd, their cameras pointed toward the tiny scene unfolding under the LED lights. The modern, polished space suddenly felt like a theater stage, a moment being recorded from every angle, A moment being judged. A moment that couldn't be undone. Emily exhaled, heavily, the kind of sigh only a single mother who works 12-hour shifts could make. She turned toward the front desk where the adoption clerk stood, a thin young man named Kevin Ruiz, early 20s, with warm brown skin and a neatly trimmed goatee, dressed in a green staff polo. Kevin's bright expression faltered when he realized which dog they were discussing. "Rex?" he said, eyebrows tightening. "Are you sure? He's not easy." "No one else is adopting him," Emily replied, her voice calm but weary. "And if regulations allow it, I'll take responsibility. But the dollar is hers." Kevin glanced at the screen in front of him. Rex, aggressive, $1, no other bidders. The corners of his mouth pressed together. "Honestly," he said, lowering his voice, "if you don't take him today, they'll probably, you know." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Emily nodded grimly. She'd heard those euphemisms all her career. "Then finish the paperwork," she said. Kevin tapped the screen quickly, fingers gliding with practiced efficiency. In less than a minute, the system beeped and the large overhead display updated, "Available, adopted, Lily Carter." Gasps fluttered across the room like startled birds. Even the volunteers froze. At the back of the hall, Rex lifted his head, the gold in his eyes reflecting the bright screen. He stared at the glowing word, "Adopted," then slowly turned toward the small figure in pink standing near the stage. For the first time in months, his tail moved, just once, like a memory. "All right then," Kevin murmured, swallowing his nerves. "Let me unlock him." He walked ahead, passing through the security gate beside Rex's enclosure. Another staff member joined him, Sarah Nunez, a stocky woman in her 40s with curly black hair, tied in a loose bun, tan skin, and a no-nonsense personality shaped by years of handling difficult animals. She had a scar on her left forearm from a pit bull rescue gone wrong, and although she carried herself with toughness, her voice always softened around any creature in pain. "Ready?" Kevin asked. Sarah nodded, tightening her gloves. "Open it slow. He doesn't trust quick movements." The electronic lock clicked. The glass door slid open with a cold hiss. Bright white light spilled across Rex's face. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then his enormous frame shifted forward, paws touching the polished floor with deliberate weight. His ears perked. His nostrils widened. His muscles coiled. And then, suddenly, Rex lunged toward the crowd, teeth bared just enough to flash in the light. The air split with screams. Emily's hand shot forward. Phones dropped. Volunteers flinched. Even Tom Bradley stumbled backward. But Rex wasn't charging the nearest adult. He wasn't attacking the handlers. He wasn't trying to escape. He was running straight at Lily, fast, powerful, unstoppable, toward the only person in the entire building who hadn't looked at him with fear. The only person who had chosen him. Lily's small brown boots stayed planted on the floor. Her pastel pink jacket fluttered like a flag in the artificial breeze. And as Rex closed the distance in a blur of fur and muscle, his eyes locked onto hers. Not wild, not vicious, but desperate, raw, and pleading. The world held its breath. Rex's paws skidded across the slick marble just inches before reaching Lily, his claws scraping lightly as momentum carried him forward. But instead of lunging, instead of snapping, instead of confirming every fear in the room, he froze. Muscles rigid, chest heaving, eyes wide with something rawer than rage. Confusion, recognition, something almost like longing. The crowd gasped, 100 breaths sucked in at once. Volunteers braced themselves. Security stepped forward. But Lily, tiny and steady in her pastel pink summer jacket, simply slipped free of her mother's grasp and lowered herself to the floor. The vat of her jacket brushed the cold tile as she knelt, her small brown boots set firmly beneath her. Her honey blonde hair spilled over her shoulders as she lifted her palm toward the trembling dog. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice soft but anchored with the strange courage only a child untouched by cynicism could possess. "I'm Lily. You're safe now." Rex's breathing quickened as childhood memories flickered through his battered mind. Hands that had grabbed, collars yanked tight, voices shouting commands meant for battlefields rather than living rooms. But this one wasn't demanding anything. It wasn't even steady. It was shaking slightly, but not from fear. It shook with hope. Slowly, Rex lowered his head. The muscles along his back twitched. A faint whine escaped his throat as if pulled from somewhere deep. Then, hesitant, fragile, he lifted one scarred paw and placed it into the tiny, outstretched hand. A wave of relief washed over the room. People exhaled as if someone had finally unlocked the air. Emily's shoulders dropped, the officer in her cautious, the mother in her startled, and the woman in her quietly moved. Even Tom Bradley, who had seen thousands of animals pass through his platform, swallowed hard and wiped at the corner of his eye, pretending it was the lights. Within 15 minutes, Rex was officially cleared to leave. As the afternoon sun soaked the streets outside, Emily held the front door open, and Lily stepped out proudly, with Rex's leash wrapped loosely in her hand. On the sidewalk, summer heat shimmered off passing cars, and the breeze carried the distant hum of beach traffic. Lily walked with a small but determined stride, her pastel pink jacket glowing under the sun beside Rex's broad silhouette. The dog's gait was uneven, still adjusting to freedom after months in confinement, but he remained right by her side, matching her pace like he'd been assigned to protect her as his new mission. Emily followed close behind, watchful and cautious, though every now and then she caught herself smiling at the sight of the pair, one so tiny, the other powerful and battle-worn, yet together forming a picture that softened even the roughest heart. Their small home in a quiet San Diego suburb was dappled with afternoon light when they arrived. The front yard held a patch of daisies Lily had planted, though only half survived the hot weather. The neighborhood itself was peaceful, cul-de-sacs, trimmed lawns, and the distant hum of lawnmowers. But Rex's first steps into the house were clumsy. His claws clicked loudly on the hardwood floors, and he startled when his reflection flashed from the glass cabinet. When the dishwasher began humming, Rex jolted backward, ears flaring. Emily crouched down beside him, her voice softer than Lily had ever heard it. "Easy, big guy. This is a safe home. No surprises here." Over the next week, Rex discovered the oddities of civilian life. The couch was too soft, the TV too loud, the mailman too suspicious, the vacuum cleaner absolutely unacceptable. Lily found endless amusement in the smallest things. How Rex tried to sit but missed the rug. How he tilted his head dramatically when hearing cartoon voices, or how he pretended not to eye her strawberry ice cream until she looked away. One afternoon, Lily was licking her cone while drawing pictures of Rex in the backyard. She set the ice cream beside her boot, and 2 seconds later it was gone, replaced by the guilty, sticky muzzle of Rex. Emily laughed so hard she had to lean against the patio door. "You," she told Rex between breaths. Eat faster than my paycheck disappears. But every evening, as the sunlight stretched long shadows across the yard, Rex would wander to the front door. He'd sit tall, ears pricked, staring toward the fading horizon. His posture shifted, muscles tightening, as if expecting a command from a voice only he could hear. A voice from a life that had left scars deeper than the ones on his fur. Lily would approach quietly, brushing her hand across his flank. "Are you remembering someone?" she asked one night, her voice barely louder than the humming cicadas. Rex leaned into her touch, his tail tapping once before falling still. Lily didn't understand his memories, but she understood loneliness. And with the certainty only children possess, she pressed her forehead gently to his shoulder and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." One golden afternoon, Lily sat on the porch, brushing Rex's fur with a soft blue brush she'd begged Emily to buy. The porch glowed in warm sunlight. Dust motes floated like tiny drifting stars. Rex lay still, eyes half closed, as Lily hummed a melody only she and the summer wind knew. Emily was inside sorting paperwork when her phone buzzed. She answered casually, then froze, her spine straightening. "This is Officer Carter," she replied, her tone sharpening. "Repeat that?" On the other end was Detective Mark Hollis, a seasoned officer in his early 50s, tall and rugged with deep lines around his eyes from 3 decades of investigative work. Hollis had a low voice, raspy from too many years of late-night coffee and cheap station cigars, and a reputation for being methodical, unshakable, and blunt to a fault. "Emily," he said, "we've detained 2 suspects connected to the Carson drug ring case. They're claiming they know about a retired K-9 staying at your address." The color drained from Emily's face. Her eyes drifted to the porch where Rex lifted his head, sensing her change in heartbeat before she even stepped outside. "Detective," Emily said slowly, "why would they know about a $1 dog?" Summer in San Diego had a way of looking harmless. Bright skies, soft breezes, and sunlight so warm it felt like kindness. But beneath its glow, danger sometimes walked in full view, disguised by the comfort of daylight. Emily Carter knew this better than most. After receiving Detective Hollis's warning, she spent the next 2 days digging into old case files, waking early and staying up late, chasing fragments of Rex's past through digital archives and police databases she still had access to. Rex's personnel file, what little of it she could retrieve, painted a clearer picture than the single line on his adoption listing. He had been part of a multi-state organized crime investigation known as Operation Harborside, a case involving a violent drug syndicate that operated between Arizona and Nevada. One handler's note in the file chilled her. K-9 engaged during close-range confrontation, injury sustained, suspect fled, dog reassigned, case unresolved. Emily stared at the screen, her jaw tightening. "So they know you," she murmured, turning her gaze toward the living room where Rex lay on a woven gray rug. Rex had changed visibly in the past week. His coat, though still patchy in places, had a new sheen. His posture was more alert, and his eyes, those deep gold eyes, had lost some of their emptiness. But even as he rested, his ears flicked at every unfamiliar sound outside. Each time a car slowed, each time a footstep passed near the window, he rose, tense, scanning the door. Something inside him had awakened. Something old. Something trained. That morning, as golden heat pooled across the kitchen tiles, Lily sprawled on the living room floor with crayons scattered around her. She wore her familiar pastel pink summer jacket, white t-shirt, jeans, and brown boots, though Emily had told her several times she didn't need boots inside the house. Lily ignored her. She insisted Rex liked the sound they made. On a large sheet of paper, she was drawing a picture of Rex with exaggerated floppy ears and a cape like a superhero. The real Rex rested beside her, head on his paws, occasionally glancing toward her with a kind of tired affection that looked almost like a smile. Across the street, Mrs. Donnelly, a plump older neighbor with short silver hair and a tendency to water her plants twice a day, just in case, glanced toward the Carter house. She noticed a dark sedan rolling slowly down the block. She frowned, but reassured herself. Delivery drivers were everywhere these days. She returned to spraying her begonias. Her vision wasn't great. Her instincts even worse. Inside the house, Rex's head snapped up. His body stiffened. Without warning, he rose, muscles coiled, tail straight, eyes locked on the front door. Lily blinked. "Rex?" she whispered. He didn't look at her. He didn't take his eyes off the door. The deep growl rumbled through his chest, vibrating the wooden floor beneath his paws. Emily, at her desk in the corner, felt her phone buzz again. This time it was Captain Hayes, her former supervisor, a broad-chested man in his late 40s with salt and pepper hair and a face marked by years of stress and sun exposure. Hayes was the type of man who softened only when talking about his daughter or his 2 Labrador retrievers. Everything else in life he handled with the emotional subtlety of a brick. "Carter," he said without greeting. "Listen carefully. We picked up chatter. Someone's looking for a dog matching the descriptions of your new K9. Keep your doors locked." Emily stood up instantly. "What do they want with him?" Hayes exhaled heavily. "It's about Harborside. Someone thinks Rex remembers something." Emily felt ice slide through her chest. "Hayes, he's not evidence, he's—" "I know," Hayes cut in. "Just stay alert." But the warning came seconds too late. The doorbell chimed. Lily lifted her head just as Emily's stomach dropped. The bell chimed again, too quickly, too forcefully. Emily stepped toward the door, but Rex was faster. He moved like a shadow, splitting the light, placing himself directly in front of Lily. His growl tore through the air, louder than before. "Mommy?" Lily whispered, her small fingers gripping the leash lying beside her. Outside stood 2 men wearing delivery uniforms, bright orange shirts with reflective stripes and matching baseball caps. But Emily noticed immediately that their shirts didn't match any known service. The taller man, a lanky figure with a long face, sunken cheeks, and pale brown stubble, held a small package under one arm. His name, Jason, was embroidered barely legibly on his shirt. His eyes were narrow and restless, darting around like a predator seeking an opening. Behind him, the second man, a broader figure with a crooked nose and rough, weather-beaten skin, shifted from foot to foot. His name tag read Mac, though the letters were nearly peeling off. Mac had the hardened expression of someone who'd spent years taking orders from men more dangerous than himself, but not enough strength of will to resist them. Both men smiled with the false sweetness of people who practiced it in the mirror. "Package for the Carter residence," Jason said. His voice had a thin, slippery quality, smooth on the surface, hiding something jagged beneath. Emily's instincts screamed. "We didn't order anything," she said, gripping the doorknob without opening it further. "Must be a mistake." Jason chuckled. Oh, I'm sure it's for you. His eyes flicked past Emily's shoulder, toward Rex, toward Lily. Behind her, Lily stepped back, boots scuffing lightly. Rex snarled, a deep, ancient sound, a sound taught by survival, not training. Emily stepped forward, blocking the doorway. Leave. Mac hesitated. Jason didn't. His smile vanished. His hand dove into his pocket. Emily's blood ran cold as the sunlight glinted off a metallic object. Rex exploded forward. The screen door slammed open in a single violent crash as 80 pounds of muscle and fury launched straight at the intruders. Jason stumbled backward, dropping the package. Mac shouted, scrambling away as Rex's jaws snapped inches from Jason's arm. Inside the house, Lily tried to follow, but her boot caught on the rug. She fell hard, her pastel pink jacket streaking across the floor as she cried out. Rex! Stay back! Emily shouted, drawing her phone with shaking hands. Outside, the struggle unfolded in a blur. Jason screaming, Rex twisting, grappling, protecting. The metallic object, a pry bar, clattered to the ground. Mac fled toward the street. Jason swung desperately, his arm catching Rex's side. A flash of red streaked across the dog's fur. Rex staggered, then fell. The world narrowed to a single sound, Lily's scream. Rex! Don't leave me! Rex! She crawled to him, wrapping her arms around his neck, her tears spilling onto his blood-matted fur. The neighbors began shouting. Someone called 911, and as sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing closer with every heartbeat, the chapter closed with Rex's breath shallow, his chest trembling, and Lily clinging to him as if her touch alone could pull him back from the edge. The morning after the attack rose clean and white above San Diego, sunlight spilling across the skyline like a promise the night had tried, but failed to break. Inside the San Diego Veterinary Trauma Center, an angular building of glass and pale blue panels, everything smelled of antiseptic and hope clinging to fear. In the brightest room near the east-facing windows, a large German shepherd lay across a stainless steel treatment table. Rex's breaths were shallow but steady, his bandaged side rising and falling beneath the gentle hum of a ceiling vent. His once fierce amber eyes were closed, but the steady thump of his heart monitor said more than any words could. Beside him stood a veterinarian named Dr. Helena Brooks, a tall woman in her early 40s with sharp cheekbones, sun-browned skin, and dark hair pulled into a tight braid that swung like a rope down her back. Her demeanor was calm and precise, the kind of woman who spoke only when needed and whose voice carried a natural authority. Years earlier, she'd served in a disaster response animal unit, and the experience had carved lines of resilience across her brow. Yet when she looked at Rex, her expression softened. He's tough, she murmured. Good reflexes. Not a mortal wound. Another inch deeper, and we'd be telling a different story. Lily stood at the head of the table, small, trembling, and fiercely present. Her pastel pink summer jacket was stained near the elbow from where she'd knelt on the driveway, her jeans still dusted with dried grass. Her tiny hand held Rex's paw with a determination far greater than her size. You're not allowed to give up, Lily whispered. You still owe me 3 more hugs, at least. Emily stood behind her daughter, one hand gently resting on her shoulder. The officer's uniform she had thrown on in the rush to get to the hospital still smelled faintly of last night's chaos. Her bun was messy, her face drawn from lack of sleep, but her eyes hardened with gratitude and anger. Gratitude that Rex had protected her daughter, and anger at a world that had ever called him disposable. By noon, local news vans had gathered outside the hospital. Reporters stood beneath the blazing California sun, delivering breaking updates. $1 police dog stops armed criminals. Social media feeds overflowed with the snapshot a bystander had taken. Lily in her pink jacket, clutching Rex's neck as sirens blurred behind them. The photo spread quickly, igniting something warm in people who had forgotten to believe in second chances. Emily hadn't intended to give interviews, but when she stepped outside to take a call from Captain Hayes, a reporter recognized her. Soon she found herself speaking carefully yet truthfully. Rex isn't dangerous. He isn't broken. He's a hero who remembered who he was, right when we needed him. That single sentence aired repeatedly throughout the day, altering the story of Rex from abandoned aggressive dog to $1 miracle. Weeks passed, and Rex's wound healed slowly but cleanly under Dr. Brooks's meticulous care. He grew steadier on his feet, regained weight, and began to carry his head higher. Summer sun poured into the Carter household again. Bright, warm, unafraid. Lily kept her routine with unwavering devotion, brushing Rex, whispering encouragements, reading stories beside him as he rested. Each day, the dog's eyes brightened. Each day, his tail thumped a little stronger. Emily, shaken by how close she'd come to losing both daughter and dog, refused to let the story fade into another forgotten headline. She reached out to the animal center that had once auctioned Rex, proposing something bold. The director, a balding, wiry man named Arthur Linden, soft-spoken and eternally nervous, listened to her idea with wide eyes. Arthur was the type of person who always apologized before speaking and had spent years feeling overshadowed by louder personalities. But his heart was good, and the guilt he carried from Rex's earlier neglect softened him further. Under Emily's insistence, he agreed. The center would be transformed. The renovation took 6 weeks. Bright murals replaced cold white walls. Sun-catching windows replaced dim lighting. Volunteers scrubbed, painted, and hammered new signage. At the entrance, a new name gleamed proudly in gold letters: Rex's Hope, Rescue and Rehabilitation Center. And beneath it, the new logo, a silhouette of a German shepherd standing tall beside a little girl in a fluttering jacket. On opening day, sunlight streamed through massive glass panels, bathing the lobby in a warm, honey-colored glow. Families arrived with curious eyes. Children squealed as old, once-forgotten dogs wagged their tails with renewed life. Rex walked among them with Lily at his side, his posture straight, his ears alert, his gait steady. A Director of Honor badge, handmade from cardboard and glitter glue, hung around his neck. He wore it with stoic dignity. Lily, still in her pastel pink jacket, white shirt, jeans, and boots, proudly introduced each dog. This is Bruno. He used to be scared, but not anymore. This is Daisy. She smiles if you give her belly rubs. Her voice was filled with a belief so pure it transformed the space around her. That afternoon, a small boy with sandy hair and big brown eyes stepped inside holding a wrinkled dollar bill. His name was Timmy Granger, 7 years old, shy, thin, with a cowlick that defied gravity and a soft stutter when he got nervous. He approached a grizzled old mutt lying in the corner. I only have this," Timmy whispered, lifting the dollar. "Is it enough?" Lily glanced at Rex. Rex looked at the boy. Then, in a slow, deliberate gesture that carried the weight of his entire journey, Rex stepped forward and rested his paw gently in Timmy's small hand. Lily beamed. Enough, she said softly. All you need is a big heart. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the windows in hues of gold and rose, Emily stood near the center door, watching her daughter and Rex circle the courtyard. The air danced with laughter, small feet, wagging tails, and the soft thud of Rex's steady steps. In that moment, the world seemed to exhale. Light touched everything with forgiveness. A $1 dog had created a sanctuary for 1,000 broken souls, because one little girl believed he deserved to be loved again. In the quiet glow of that summer evening, as Rex walked beside Lily under the fading gold of the San Diego sky, one truth shimmered gently beneath everything that had happened. Sometimes God sends miracles in forms we don't expect, not wrapped in wings or light, but in fur, in trust, in the courage of a child, and in the second chance we give to someone who seems forgotten. Rex was abandoned, broken, and sold for $1. Yet through the hands of a little girl with a heart bigger than her fear, he became a reminder that no soul is beyond saving, and no story is too damaged for God to rewrite. In our everyday lives, between worries, bills, long workdays, and the quiet moments where we feel unseen, it is easy to forget that hope often arrives quietly, asking only that we notice. Sometimes the miracle is the person who stands beside us. Sometimes it's the pet who waits at the door when we come home. And sometimes, like Rex, it's a hero who thought his purpose was over, until someone loved him enough to begin again. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who might need a reminder that God still works in mysterious ways. Leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe if you believe that compassion still has the power to change the world, one small act at a time. May God bless you, your family, and every loyal companion waiting for a second chance. And may every sunrise bring you a quiet miracle of your own. God bless you all.